Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into a really fascinating classic tale of power, corruption, and a brilliantly executed setup for justice. We're looking at The Clever Camel and the Thief King. You know, stories like this one, they're rooted in classic fable traditions, and they use a jungle setting to reflect some very real, very human societal flaws. Today's narrative, it honestly reads like a gripping heist movie. We've got a corrupt politician, false accusations, an undercover operative, and a deeply satisfying trap. It's an absolute masterclass in how collective fear lets tyranny thrive and exactly what it takes to break that whole cycle.
Okay, let's dive into this by looking at the core question driving this entire narrative. When the protector becomes the predator, who will deliver justice? Just imagine living in a community, in this case, a beautiful, lush jungle, where the ultimate authority figure, the one who's literally in charge of keeping you safe, is actually the mastermind robbing you blind. The animals in our source material find themselves in exactly this nightmare scenario. They're dealing with a totally broken system because the very top of the food chain is completely rotten.
Section 1. The Mystery of Jungle Thefts.
So to really understand how bad things have gotten, let's look at the systemic problem that is just paralyzing this jungle. It's not just that thefts are happening. The justice system itself is being weaponized against the innocent to cover it all up. Let's trace this timeline. On night 1, a theft happens, and a perfectly innocent wolf is hauled in. His wife provides a rock-solid physical alibi. Her husband had just returned from a massive journey. His feet were literally covered in blisters, and he was out cold in a deep sleep. But they're both thrown in a dungeon anyway. Fast forward to the pre-winter rainy season. The foxes painstakingly gathered all these dry fruits, meat, and roots to survive the cold. It's completely wiped out overnight. And the very next day, the king arbitrarily blames the hyena for it, even though the hyena is pleading his innocence. With zero evidence, the poor hyena is permanently exiled.
And this perfectly illustrates the sheer arrogance of a dictator. Look at this chilling quote straight from the source text. When the wolf's wife actually dares to present logical evidence about her husband's blistered feet, the king's eyes go red with anger. He roars, "Are you the kin or am I? My word is the law here. Keep quiet and don't try to be too smart." He literally could not care less about the truth. He's using intimidation and immediate imprisonment to just completely crush any critical thinking from the public. And it works. The jungle falls dead silent out of sheer terror.
Which brings us to the massive twist here. The real thief? It's none other than the Jungle King himself. The text reveals that the king had basically just developed this incredibly greedy habit for getting free food and hoarding everyone else's valuables. So, by night, he was this petty burglar. But by day, he used his supreme power and fearsome reputation to frame the weakest, most defenseless animals, sending them to jail or exile just to keep his own paws clean. The animals kind of suspected it, but because he was the most dangerous predator around, they were just suffocating in silence.
Section 2. Enter the Sheikh Camel.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast in power. Every corrupt system has a blind spot, right? And for this king, it arrives in the form of Sheikh Jamal the Camel. On one side, we have the local king, arrogant, greedy, completely abusing his power, and totally blinded by his own local supremacy. On the other side, we have the newcomer, the camel. He's this towering, royal-looking figure who has traveled all the way from Dubai. He is worldly, incredibly clever, generous, and acutely observant. As soon as he wanders in, chewing his cud, he instantly senses that despite how beautiful the jungle is, all the animals' faces are painted with this heavy, unnatural sadness.
But Sheikh Jamal doesn't just barge in and challenge the king directly. He gathers intel. The resistance forms really organically. The camel hides behind a bush and overhears the deer and the bear whispering. The deer drops a crucial piece of evidence. On the night the fox was robbed, the exiled hyena was actually sitting with the deer all night long, just talking. They know the king is framing everyone, but they confess they are literally too paralyzed by fear to do anything about it. So, stepping out of the shadows, the camel assures these terrified locals that he has a foolproof, heavy-duty plan to cure the jungle of this terrible disease.
But before they launch this super high-stakes plan, the source material gives us this wonderfully human, animal moment that completely breaks the tension. Check out this fun fact from the text. The deer asks the wealthy camel why on earth he's traveling alone. Sheikh Jamal lets out this heavy sigh and admits that he actually lost his temper, yelled at his wife, and she got so angry she packed up and went to her parents' house back in Dubai. Hearing this, the bear's face just lights up and he goes, "You're in the right place, brother. My bear wife did the exact same thing." It's just this great funny touch that bonds these strangers into fast friends over their shared domestic troubles.
Section 3. Trap to catch the thief.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because with their new friendship solidified, it's time for a brilliant sting operation. The camel totally gets that the king's biggest weaknesses are his massive ego and his endless greed. So, step 1. He approaches the king while he's resting under a banyan tree and flatters him outrageously, just totally validating his absolute authority. Step 2. He offers the king a sample of this incredibly delicious, exotic, spice-rubbed Dubai-style meat. I mean, the king is practically drooling. And then comes the masterful step 3. The camel very casually mentions that he has a massive, completely unguarded pile of this priceless meat sitting in his temporary cave. And then he just pretends to go to sleep.
Section 4. King caught red-handed.
The bait is set. The camel has handed the greedy king an irresistible target, and the execution of this midnight ambush is absolutely flawless. All the animals, the bear, deer, fox, monkeys, and elephants, they're all hidden silently in the dense bushes, literally holding their breath. In the dead of night, with just the crickets chirping, the once proud king sneaks toward the cave on his tiptoes, looking exactly like the petty thief he really is. He greedily fills this huge basket with the exotic meat, holds it in his mouth, and tries to just slip away. But right as he exits the cave, bam! The united animals spring from the bushes and surround him.
The king drops his basket in sheer, utter panic. And stepping right out of the united crowd is a ghost from his past, delivering this devastating line. "See, I told you all earlier that the king is the real thief. It is the exiled hyena." The king is caught totally red-handed, and his absolute, unquestioned authority just evaporates in a single second. He tries to let out a roar, but it's weak and pathetic against the united front of all the animals.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth did the exiled hyena get back there, and why did this camel from Dubai care so much in the first place? Well, here is the heartwarming reveal of the masterminds. The camel and the hyena were actually childhood friends. When the king unjustly banished the hyena from the jungle, the poor guy wandered into the city and just happened to run into his old pal, Sheikh Jamal. Upon hearing about this awful injustice, the camel traveled all the way out to the jungle specifically to avenge his friend and expose this corrupt system. So it was basically an inside job, brilliantly designed to take down an inside job.
Section 5. Justice and the moral.
With the truth finally out in the open and the king's whole facade shattered, the power dynamic permanently shifts. Because, true justice isn't just about punishing the wrongdoer, it's about actually restoring the victims. The united animals forcefully exile the disgraced king from the jungle forever. And immediately after, they march right down to the dungeon and free the innocent wolf and his wife with full honors. The hyena is welcomed warmly back into his rightful home. And in this amazing show of community solidarity, all the animals chip in bits of their own food to rebuild the fox's winter stash so she won't go hungry. Order, peace, and fairness are completely restored.
So the crucial point is really captured in the ultimate moral provided by the text. Truth can be suppressed for a while but not hidden. The king used his massive power, intimidation, and false imprisonment to suppress the truth. He completely controlled the narrative through fear, but the truth, it was always there. It was just waiting for a catalyst, in this case, a very clever camel and a newly united community, to finally bring it out into the light.
And that leaves us with an incredibly important thought for today. We've seen exactly how fear allows corruption to thrive completely unchecked. So, if absolute power corrupts absolutely, how do we ensure that kings of our own world, in our own communities or institutions, are actually held accountable before an outsider like the camel has to intervene? It's a powerful reminder that unity, speaking up, and demanding transparency are hands down our best defenses against tyranny. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this sparks some great reflection on leadership and justice in your own lives.